to Mental Health Momentum, a Silicon Slopes podcast. I am Dr. David Morgan. I'm a licensed psychologist and the Director of Mental Health Awareness here at Silicon Slopes. And on this podcast, we talk about mental health issues in business and beyond, and we look for solutions. I introduce my guest to you today. This is Lindsay Schiess. Did I get it right?
Said it right. I'm impressed.
2 guests in a row that have had hard to pronounce last names. And so
we're testing you.
It is a big test today.
You got it.
I'm going to tell you about Lindsay. Lindsay is a curious soul who finds joy in people, pancakes, and sleeping under the stars, preferably not all at once. She laughs loudly, cries during commercials, and is always up for a mountain wander or deep conversation. More than anything, she loves people. As a mom to 4 and wife to 1 very patient man, she believes families are life's greatest classroom, where we learn how to love, grow, mess up, say sorry, try again and again and again. Home is where she's learned most of her most important lessons about resilience, humility, and connection. She is a speaker, therapist, professor at the University of Utah, and a podcast host, which basically means she asks a lot of questions and never stops being fascinated by what makes people tick. Through her work, she helps individuals, teams, and organizations build resilience, strengthen relationships, and navigate life and work with more courage and compassion. She believes deeply in the goodness of people and the remarkable capacity we all have to heal, grow, and show up for one another. Lindsay, it's such a treat to have you on the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for reading that, and thanks for our listeners to actually listening. That was long, so I appreciate it.
It's not as long as some.
Really?
Yes, seriously.
Okay.
Sometimes it's really long.
It's really long. Well, I'm like, I got to get a shorter version of that, but I appreciate it.
When you hear it, then you're like,
yeah,
okay.
Oh man, that's a lot about me. Let's move on. Let's get to the good stuff here. So
exactly, get to the good stuff. Well, and you're an LCSW, and I always love having mental health professionals on the podcast because then we talk shop.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Let's get into it. Here we go.
Exactly. We have to, I just have to remember, not everyone's going to know exactly whatever we're talking about. So we kind of keep the context.
That's right.
Context.
Yeah.
So
keep the acronyms at bay and all the
exactly.
things that we kind of have this crazy mental health shop talk. Yeah. We'll do our best.
So what drew you into mental health in the first place?
You know what, for me,
because earlier you said you went into broadcast journalism.
Yeah.
That was first. So,
yes.
Okay.
It was. Yeah. So broadcasting was awesome. I loved learning about people's story, but I realized that just learning about people's story and then putting it out to the world and then walking away didn't feel aligned with my values. And so really what I learned is I love human behavior. I love learning about people, what makes them tick, why some people come out of hard things and better and others stay stuck and suffer. And so because of that curiosity, I really thought, I want to study, I want to learn this, I want to understand. And so that's really what led me to it. And honestly, I think part of it too is, having my own experiences and understanding, gosh, like life is challenging and we have these experiences and we can either learn and grow from them or we can become stuck. And really that was my motivation. And as I remember going to school and thinking, this is incredible. Like I have always searched out this information and they're just like feeding it to me. These books they're giving it to me. And that's when you know you're in the right field, when you're like eating up everything they're teaching you. And so, it's been a joy because I really believe that when we understand what's going on inside ourselves and inside of others from a mental health perspective, it unlocks so many doors. We understand, we deepen our empathy, our curiosity grows, and we can be better leaders, better in relationships, better mothers and fathers. And I believe in the power of it.
And you're exactly right. It's so true. And yet it's one of the few areas in life where for whatever reason, we don't think we need any help to improve it. We will hire personal trainers. We'll hire physicians and nutritionists and all these people because we think, well, I need someone who knows more about this to help me get better. But for whatever reason with mental health, it's a little bit trickier. And there's so many people, maybe it's just the stigma still attached to it, or they think, well, you should just be able to figure yourself out. Why?
I totally agree with that. And I think part of it is we don't see it. It's in our brains. It's inside, right? So like if we're working with a trainer, we can see, we're getting fit. There's muscle building. Something's happening. If there's something physical going on, we go to a doctor because we can feel it, we can see it.
Right.
But when it's in this invisible thing that's going on, it's hard to put our finger on it. And I do think there's some stigma. However, I will say I think we're getting so much better at talking about it and it becoming normalized and people actually saying, you know what, I see a therapist, I get help here, I have a coach, whatever it is. I think we're getting better, but you're right. We still have a long way to go.
Yeah, exactly. I love that because it's the invisibility of it, right?
That's
and
right.
so it's just hard to see progress and change. But I think that, like, I love experts. I love people who know more than I do about any number of things.
Yep.
And I love hiring them to help me with things. 'Cause I'm like, because you know about this. So you go do this very, very well. And then I will pay you to do it very well, as I expect someone to come to me or someone like you to say, I need help with my mental health. And so I'm going to go and you help me.
Well, and I also think when we're in it, it's really hard for us to see, right? Like when I'm in it, all I can see is actually what it feels like, how I'm experiencing it. Yeah. But somebody that you go to can actually have a zoomed out lens, and they can look from a perspective that we often don't have. And gosh, it provides so much insight because again, they're not emotionally involved. They're objective. They can look at it and call you on your crap or say, all right, validate some of the pain and also say, wait a minute, this is where you're off. Yeah. And so I agree. I think it is the best way that we can, I tell people, I say, this is some of the hardest work you'll ever do. I promise you it is. Yeah. If you really do it, it's some of the hardest work you'll ever do. And it is the most life-changing work you'll ever do. I promise you. Yeah. If you choose to do it and you choose to go all in, and it's not just about here in session or when I'm coaching a group, but it's when you go out in the real world, when you're with your families, with your employees, that's when the rubber hits the road.
That's so true. So in your professional work, I know that you do some consulting for businesses and stuff. Do you still do individual therapy as well?
I do both. Yep. So I love therapy. Yeah. It's always been a love of mine. I really believe, again, it's a work of miracles. But what I was seeing is some of the same things that were happening in my therapy office of, people would say it's communication and it's disconnection. The same things are happening in the workplaces. And what I realize is that if I can help people see some of those things before they get to a breaking point and come to my office, then it can help them individually and the entire organization function as a whole. And so really working with organizations is really more proactive work. Yes. And I always tell people, you're going to spend time one way or the other. You're going to spend time on the proactive side right. or the reactive side.
Exactly.
You're going to spend time building and becoming better, or you're going to spend time cleaning it up. Yep. And I believe that with relationships or in our organizations. And so I really want to help people and give them tools to create better environments to live, to work, to be in.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, you pay now or you pay later, but everybody pays.
Absolutely.
Everybody, the bill comes due.
Absolutely.
And you can decide to do something about it now or later.
Yep.
And it's tricky because maybe just for any reasons we get overwhelmed, and then we think, well, I'll just push this till later, right? But there's only so long you can do that. And I think it's harder to clean up messes, frankly,
100%,
than it is to prevent them from happening in the first place.
That's right. Yeah. And what's unfortunate is what usually brings people to the office, or what brings people and they call and say, we've got to get help with our organization, is when there is a mess.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
That's when they call and say, okay, this is not working. Yeah. Our employees are burned out. Our teams are in conflict. My relationship is struggling. I'm not happy in my marriage. Yeah. That's when people call. And I think, what if we were to actually look at it and say, put in the time and energy now, because cleaning it up, like you said, is harder. It takes more effort.
Okay. So what's our problem? Why are we so reactive and not proactive? And any thoughts on that? Because generally speaking, you're right. I mean, you'll get 10-to-1 calls of people who are broken. And in the mental health space, that's all it is.
That's right.
I mean, we don't deal with people that are healthy. We only deal with people that are unhealthy, and they come when they're broken. And so, but you're right. Prevention is absolutely the name of the game and what it should be. I don't know. How do we sell people on prevention? What do we do?
It's such a good question, right? The $1 million question. But I actually would say, really, when people have a taste of what it feels like to interact in their business, and say, you know what, I'm more connected. I feel more understood. I'm leading with greater empathy. Right. Oh, maybe there's something to this. It's like when people can get a piece and a taste of this and they actually implement it, I think that's when we start to say, you know what, I want more of this. Yeah. This feels better. Right. I'm more connected to my spouse than I've ever been. I feel differently in this relationship. That's the motivator. But sometimes it does take that first step to actually feel what it feels like to feel a difference from the way we've always behaved. I mean, I think of it this way. You know, you grew up with certain circumstances, I did, and we come with positive things and we come with deficits. And then we go into all these relationships and we just think, oh, it's all going to work out magically.
Yes.
And turns out it doesn't most of the time. And it's like we kind of just keep going on with like it's like I think of like a wound that doesn't heal. And we're just kind of like, oh, just keep putting a Band-Aid on. Do we keep putting a Band-Aid for years on a wound? No, we would go to a doctor and say, again, there's a problem. What am I going to do? But again, because it's invisible and we're just used to it. It's like, you know, this is our level of functioning. It's fine. But the truth is when you get a taste of what it feels, the difference that it can make in your life, in your organization, then you want more of that.
I think maybe the greatest motivator for that is to experience the pain and then to have the remediation. And then that's when the prevention becomes a thing. It'd be lovely if we would all just kind of figure it out and say prevention is what we need to do. But I wonder if for most people, it does take kind of getting into those dark places and then realizing this is horrible. Mm-hmm. Let's figure our way out of this. And now how can we prevent from ever going back there again?
Absolutely.
Right. So I wonder if there's a correlation that way.
I think you're for sure right. You know, the other thing I would say is I've always heard the biggest predictor of change with a client is their willingness and readiness to change. Yeah. You know, and it's not looking at the boss and saying, look at these metrics are ridiculous, or it's looking at the spouse and saying, look, they keep showing up in this way. It's the willingness to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I've got some work to do. I know I don't have all the answers. I know I'm not perfect and I want to change. And so again, I think it's whether we're coming on the proactive or reactive side, really what's going to help us get there is the willingness to say, I don't have it all figured out. I've got weaknesses and I'm ready to do the work around that.
Why are we unwilling to talk about that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I mean, as you laugh, but because I think, you know, like, because then that takes a lot of humility and it's a lot of work. And we have to really look and say, gosh, I've been doing something for many years that I thought was helping me. And it's actually really hurting me in my relationships. That's hard. Like that's in theory, like we don't lack theory. We don't lack information, but it's really also, how do I do that? How do I now go and do something different? It's like me saying to you, like, okay, you go to the grocery store from your house, probably the same road every time, right? If I were to say, you know what, I want you to go the exact opposite, it would take a lot more work for you to go to that grocery store opposite, right? We're doing that same thing to our brain when we're retraining our brain. Yep. We're saying, nope, we're going to do it different. Nope, here we go. I mean, that's a lot of work. So people shy away from that because, you know, I mean, we're just limping along and it's kind of working.
Right.
And so really digging in and doing it is hard. It's hard work. And again, what I will say, when you do it and you feel the difference, it is so impactful and your relationships change. You change. The way you see the world changes. I mean, you can tell I'm passionate about it because I felt it in my life. I've seen it in thousands of clients' lives. Like it is a change that is so worth the work, but it requires work.
And the good news is that once a person starts to engage in that change process and start to experience some success, right, and see the benefits that come from that, I think it gets easier after that,
100%.
because then you'll start to see problems quicker, and then maybe do something about it to cut it off before it becomes, you know, so malignant. The other thing I think that's important is that it gives us hope, because there's so many people that just figure, they say, this is just the way I am. There's nothing I can do about it. That drives me nuts when people say that. They talk about their family history of mental illness and, well, because my dad had this, my grandpa had this, my great-grandpa had this. And I'm like, okay, I get that. It doesn't guarantee that you've got it as well. You know, I mean, there may be some predisposition for sure, but there's always things that we can do to change the way the trajectory of our lives. And when we do change the trajectory of our lives and have success in that, then I think we're like, oh my gosh, it's like dispelled this huge myth that we can't change. And so now change becomes this sandbox that we can play in instead of this thing that's like forever forbidden or impossible to us.
Exactly. In fact, as you're saying that, I'm thinking of a client that I worked with, and I'm working with him still. And he came in and said, I want to tell you something. I don't believe in therapy. I don't really care about mental health, but I'm here because I've been told I need to be here. And I thought, oh, this will be fun. Exactly. You sound like a real party. Here we go. And so after meeting, and honestly, it was only after about a month that we met, he came in. And again, we were working through some workplace things, but he was using the same tools and principles to apply to his marriage. Mm-hmm. And he said, you know what? This has changed the way that I'm showing up with my wife. He said, I didn't realize, and with tears in his eyes said, 30 years of marriage I have wasted because I didn't realize what I was not seeing before. Right. And again, he came in kind of jaded and I thought, okay, yes. Game on, here we go. And yet, again, recognizing after a month of doing some of this work, saying not only in his workplace had things changed, but he was looking at himself differently. And so it impacted his marriage and it's impacting his relationship with his kids. And I thought, again, it wasn't fun. I think he had developed some things that were serving him, right? As you're saying, like, oh, you know what? That's because of my grandpa and that's what I've always seen. And we can use that as an excuse, but we can also, it's really been adaptive. Often we do that because that's what we've seen growing up. Yeah. That's what we've seen, we've witnessed. And so we go, it makes sense. It's easy. But when we can go, you know what, that's not who I want to be anymore. And I think when we also get aligned with who we want to be, like, who do you want to be as a business leader? What kind of boss do you want to be? What kind of husband do you want to be? We don't spend a lot of time doing that. Mm-hmm. We really don't. We don't spend a lot of time going, no, this is who I want to be. And so I've got to figure out how to show up better as that person. Yeah. We think of all the excuses as opposed to saying, no, I get to decide. I get one wild life, one.
Right.
And I get one opportunity. And we get to decide, are we going to use this like as our history as a crutch, or are we going to use it as a springboard to become who we want to be?
Exactly. Yeah, it's empowering.
It's so empowering. Yes. Yeah.
And so much of mental health is lived in a space of disempowerment, right? Of people thinking about what they can't do. And yeah. I love that.
In fact, as you were saying that, I thought, I'm really not a clinician that does a lot of diagnosing. And people will say, oh, am I this? Or is my husband, is he a narcissist? Yes. Tell me. Is he, and I think, everyone's a narcissist right now, it seems like. But I think, oh, you know what? It doesn't really matter because we're going to work on it the same way. And we're going to work through these things. So regardless of your history, what you do or don't think you have, let's just start working. That's what matters, right?
It's so true. Yeah, it's the work that makes the difference. The diagnostic label is something that's useful for clinicians periodically, but it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference in terms of what we do because even the label itself, the manifestation of that condition and that individual client is going to be different from client to client who have the same label.
That's right.
Right. And so you might you have different treatment planning. I remember years ago, I injured my back and we had insurance, but it was terrible insurance. And so it was really bad and I could barely walk. And so I went to see a doctor and they said, well, we want you to go get some physical therapy and go to an imaging place and get an MRI. So I go to the MRI place. They said it's going to be $1,000 for the MRI. And I'm like, I was like, there's no way. Right. So I went to the physical therapy place next and I described my symptoms to the therapist. And I asked her, I said, based on what I've told you, if you had an MRI or not, are you going to do anything different? And she said, no. The course of treatment is going to be the same. We may not have to have like perfect diagnostic certainty about what's going on, but everything you've described suggests this. And we did the physical therapy and I got better. And I have no idea what actually was wrong with me.
Wow.
But this course of treatment would have been the same anyway. And I think about that. It's like the label, was it a ruptured disc? I don't know. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter
because we fixed it through the same thing she was going to do anyway.
That's right.
Because she knew based on my symptoms what it was. We put so much you and I don't, because we know better.
We try not to. That's right. Yeah.
But so much of the public puts so much stock in the diagnosis.
Yes.
And it's the worst.
And versus the treatment, right?
Totally.
Let's put our energy and time in the treatment. And like you said, it didn't really matter what was going on with your back. The treatment was the same.
Exactly.
So let's just get to work on the treatment.
Exactly.
Yeah. But sometimes, again, if we can just talk about the diagnosis, it's like, well, then I don't have to do any work. I can just be in there and I can, again, I think sometimes we look at that and it feels almost like protective. Like, I don't have, I can be a victim.
Right.
This happened to my mom. This actually was my childhood. So I don't need to do this. This happened to me versus, no, let's start working on the treatment.
Right.
But again, that's where the magic is when we actually say, oh, let's focus on the treatment. Let's focus on here and in the future.
Right.
That's where hope lies, is now and in the future. And I think we've gotten really diagnosing happy. TikTok, I mean,
Totally.
There's diagnoses everywhere.
Everywhere.
It's wild.
Yes.
And I think we throw around diagnoses like I've never seen before.
Exactly. Yes.
But again, treatment is where, and again, willingness to look at ourselves and say, I'm ready to do that hard work. I'm ready to go to the store backwards. Give me the tools. And we're not short of tools. We're not short of information.
Exactly.
We have more information, but it's how to implement it. What does it look like in my everyday life? And I will tell clients, like, here's the theory, here's a way to apply it. And I'm going to tell you, it's a lot easier said than done. And all of us are work in progress, including those of us that are in this field. We're all a work in progress.
Oh, yeah.
You don't ever just reach optimal mental health and go, and check, we're done.
Exactly.
We continue to work on it,
Well, and half of us are messed up, and that's why we came into the field in the first place.
Listen,
right?
Amen. Amen. People always say that. Like, therapists always seem to have like a lot of like background and kind of baggage. And I'm like, oh, do you know what we are?
Exactly.
We're wounded healers.
Exactly.
That's why we do this, because
Yes.
we've gone through something and then we try to help others.
Right.
Yeah. At the university, I always tell my students that, like, oh, that's why you're drawn to this, because you've had some experience. So use your pain and put it into some purpose.
Yes.
I mean, that's the beauty of it. Like, we don't go through things just to go through them. We go through them to come out the other side and help others along the way. I mean, that's what I feel like.
I know. I love that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about connection in the 21st century, okay? Because it's different now, right?
Very.
It's very different now than it has been. I was just talking to a friend the other night about this, and who's like trying to date now. She's in her early 20s, and I said, I think that your generation is dealing with things that no other generation has had to deal with before. And I wonder if it'll be different for their kids, just because maybe they'll figure a few things out. I think we're having some, I don't know, just some novel experiences with people trying to connect in a world that is so digitally connected.
That's right.
So what do you, when you talk about connection, when you train on this, how do we do it?
Gosh, it's such a good question. We are more disconnected than we've ever been.
I know.
We are more disconnected. And we think because we have these little devices in our hand that we're connected. But in fact, it disconnects us from real connection with each other, in-person connection, right? I remember someone saying to me just recently, like, she had a group of teenagers over, and she said, unless the person's in this room, then put your phone away. That's who you're connecting with. Like, unless they're in this room, we're not connecting with them.
Right.
We're connecting with whoever's here. So what I will say is, a lot of people talk about, we have conflict. We have a problem with communication. We have a problem with conflict resolution. The truth is, we don't. We actually have a connection problem.
Yep.
And we think it's those things, right? We don't communicate well. We just don't see eye to eye. We have different values. Wait a minute. Actually, you just feel disconnected. Yeah. And sometimes we really lack connection and understanding. What does that look like and what does that feel like? And in fact, Dr. Vivek Murthy, who was our former Surgeon General, said, that is the plague. That is our plague, disconnection. It's not about, are we doing the right thing or are we not? How are we managing this? It's actually disconnection. So I've heard it said that the opposite of mental illness is not mental, the opposite mental wellness is not mental illness. It's actually disconnection. And so really getting clear, and this is where I'll say, when I work with organizations and with individuals, is really it starts with ourselves. When I'm connected with myself and know what's going on from an emotional perspective, we're really good at ignoring what's going on with us, aren't we?
Even better now that we have so many distractions, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So it starts with us really getting clear. I mean, I woke up a couple of weeks ago and I just was feeling off. I saw my husband and he said hello and I was just bugged. And my son was eating breakfast and I was just bugged. Like, I was so bugged. And I had 20 minutes before I was starting to see clients and probably 25 minutes of things to do. And I thought, all right, like, I could just feel I was off. And so I thought, Lindsay, go put your money where your mouth is. Go do what you tell people to do. And I went out and I bundled up and I just started walking and I started talking and I just let it rip. I started voice memoing. And anything that came up for me, I just let it rip. And I got pretty clear within about 10 minutes why I was bothered. It wasn't my kids. It wasn't my husband. I woke up with stress in my nervous system. But I think we don't take that time to get regulated ourselves before we go into the meeting, before we have the conversation. So connection, I believe, starts with ourselves, getting really clear about what's going on inside of me before I can connect with somebody else. So understanding, gosh, when I feel off, what does that feel like and what do I do? That's number one.
Yeah.
And then we can go and lead well. Then we can go and connect well with, with our management team, with our husband, with our wife. But until we're okay ourselves, we're not going to show up well.
And it's the good news and the bad news at the same time, right? Because it's the bad news. People are like, what do you mean I have to do something? But the good news is you're in charge of that. You're in control of that.
That's right.
This is something that's not dependent on someone else making a decision or some policy changing or someone being in political power. It doesn't matter. You can make that change because it's within you. You can connect with yourself and become more self-aware of what's going on, why you're feeling a certain way, processing those things. My wife, every night she writes in what she calls her thought journal. And she just writes in there, the things that happened during the day. And it's so helpful.
Brilliant.
Because she just, she just processes what's going on.
Yep.
And it's amazing. Yeah.
I tell people that same thing. Keep a journal by your bed and just brain dump. No editing, no filtering, right? Just let it rip. And, I will say too, I think that we, again, are used to ignoring our bodies. When we're hungry, we don't eat. When we're tired, we can't always sleep.
Right.
So we're used to ignoring our bodies, but our bodies will be our first indicator when something's off. Pay attention to your body, right? Like for me, I feel like my shoulders are into my ears, right? I'm just so tense, or I have a knot in my stomach. Pay attention to that. That means something's off with you and you need to do some curiosity work around what's going on. For me, it's walking and voice memoing. It's so helpful just to get it out there, move. Both of those things help me to process and help me to get back to a state of regulation where I can connect better with those around me.
Yeah. Now that people know you're voice memoing, then they're going to think you're the crazy lady walking around talking to herself.
Oh, listen,
right?
I already know they do. I've said that. Listen, and I'm like, and I've actually told my best friend, I've said, now, if and when I die, this is your job to find those and erase every single one of them, right? They're for nobody else's ears but my own, and they're for getting it all out there.
Permanent digital record of your.
That's right, of all of my frustrations and my
exactly
brain dump. That's
Maybe
right.
That paper journal isn't a bad idea after all.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
So then you can actually burn it. She actually knows where my journals are too. I've told her, because I have the same thing your wife does. I do it everywhere. So I'm like, when I go, here's where you find them and get rid of them. That's her job.
Lindsay, it's been amazing to talk to you. I could talk with you for like another 2 hours.
I agree.
But no one's going to listen for another 2 hours, so we can't do that.
That's right.
But thank you so much for coming today. If people want to learn more about what you do, where can they go find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn at Lindsay Schiess, and then my website is lindsayschiess.com.
SCHIESS.
That's right.
Exactly.
Thank you for specifying.
I spelled it correctly.
It's as hard and as bad as a last name as it sounds, so thank you.
Well, thanks again for being here, Lindsay.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
And thanks everyone for listening today. Remember that change starts with you, and together we can increase our mental health momentum.